Get out your oil pastels and learn how to create color gradients that go from dark to light. This will elevate your artwork and make it look dynamic, three-dimensional, and this is a great skill if you're new to oil pastels or you're looking to take your blending to the next level. If you love learning about art, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an art tutorial. All you will need is your favorite oil pastels, a sketchbook, and a piece of scratch paper to clean your oil pastels with. My first gradient today is going to be blue. A gradient is a gradual color transition. So you're blending from one color to another or from one shade of that color to a lighter tint. And so think of it as blending and shading at the same time. And I am going to make this blue. So I start with a dark blue, and here's my what not to do example. This is just two colors side by side. Obviously it's not blended because the two colors have to touch. Now here are the two colors touching but not blended. An oil pastel is meant to be blended. Take that lighter color and pull to the right to create a gradual gradient or blend of dark blue to light blue. I always go back to my first color to make sure it has a voice too, and that lighter color didn't over-dominate the first one. Then I go back and I do it again with a more gentle hand so I have a nice gentle blend. Now keep in mind this is just practice. Think of this like a value scale like you would with a pencil. I'm going to keep this gradient very simple and just do dark blue, light blue, and ending with white. You just saw me clean my oil pastel with a scrap piece of paper because this pastel is very well used and has a lot of other colors on it. You can see the white really jumped in there and made a lighter blue. So just like I did before, I'm going back with my middle color in this gradient, adding it in so the white didn't take away the voice of that light blue, gently going over it, making sure it's clean, and with a lighter hand, blending that transition so it's a really smooth transition from dark blue to a medium to a light blue at the end. So this is my first gradient and it's so much fun to do. Let's do another one. This time I'm going to focus on warm colors and I'm going to start with red. So anytime I'm teaching oil pastels in the classroom, I always start my students doing a practice page of oil pastel gradients. I really could do this all day long. Next, I'm going to blend in orange, and that just makes the most satisfying, fiery color transitioning from red to orange. You can see right away that the orange is very dominant. It kind of erased that red. So go back in there and use the red to get its voice back at the end, or beginning, I should say, of your gradient. So notice I'm not using my finger. I'm not using a tissue. I'm simply using the oil pastel itself to blend. A clean pastel is a pastel that has not yet lived. So if you're tempted to use your finger, just think of the oil pastel as an extension of your finger and blend from there. You can see I've added yellow and I'm doing the same technique. This is all about repetition, getting that orange back in the conversation and then very gently getting the yellow back in there too. I really love this combination. It just reminds me of fire. Such a great combination of warm colors. I always like to end my gradients with white whenever it applies to my color scheme because it just gives it that really beautiful light into a gradient that only white can do, getting those nice tones, those pastel colors, those tints. So this is just a gorgeous gradient, and you can see with this one I did 4 colors instead of just 3. What if I were to add black and make my gradient even more contrasting but have a really dark red at the beginning? Let's see what that looks like. So instead of starting with black, I added it to the end of my gradient, and then I'm taking my red and pulling that into the conversation. Be careful when mixing with black. It's a gorgeous color. You really can't replicate it, but not all colors work well with black in certain color schemes. Black can make your colors very muddy because it's such a dominant color, but I really love using it almost all the time because you just can't get that dark contrast without it. Here's a gradient where I use 5 colors, warm, going from as dark red as I can to the lightest yellow. I'm inspired by that black, so I'm going to do one of my students' favorite gradients, and that is a galaxy. I'm going to start with black this time, and then I'm going to find my dark purple, and I'm going to do my darkest blend from black to purple. You're going to see me repeat the exact same steps over and over again. Just like learning how to shade with a pencil or paint with a paintbrush, practice is key. The best way how to learn how to use oil pastels is to practice using them. I'm going to keep this as a simple 3-color gradient, black, purple, and then ending with white. My students love using this one on the oil pastel donut project that I teach. And if you're interested in that, I'll put my video at the end of this, and I'll also put a link in the description box to my lesson plan. A galaxy donut looks amazing. So with that, I'm keeping it really simple, just thinking if you're doing dark, medium, and light. So always kind of start with your darkest color first. For this one, it was black. For the first one, it was blue. Find a mid-range color that's in the same color family or is the same color. And then I tend to always end with white. You can see blending back and forth, and this isn't a straight line. So you might want to experiment with different textures. You might think, okay, what shape am I going to blend? And you might practice blending a sphere or blending with a scratchy texture. There's so many ways to use pastels. It's like painting with a crayon, and I have to say it's my favorite thing to teach, and it was one of my favorite ways to create when I was a younger artist. I'm going to finish with one last color gradient, and I'm going to mix up my warm and cool colors a little bit. So I'm going to start with the basics. I'm doing my darkest green, and then I have this really gorgeous yellow grass green color, so I'm going to blend that. And then instead of ending with white, which I could totally do, after I blend those two greens together, I'm going to introduce yellow to the color scheme. And so that will give it even more of a complex range of color, even more of a blending opportunity. Make sure that yellow's clean. The last color I touched with it is orange. And I'm just kind of pulling that light green, always going back and forth. So blending is a verb, which means there's action to it. You don't just kind of smush the colors together and move on. I always encourage my students not just to copy my color combinations, but really have fun with the colors, blend them, practice before working on a final work of art. The best way to know if you like or love or dislike a color scheme is to practice. So here it is, my easy, very basic blending gradients with oil pastels. Thank you so much for sticking around and making art with me. And if you're interested in working at the next level, try out these tutorials that will show you how to use color gradients to make really more intricate three-dimensional works of art. If you're interested in what my students are doing in the classroom, find me on Instagram at @thatartteacher_Machado.